Hi guys, this is Max here, back again with hopefully another great political video, and today we're going to do together the 8 values test, one that I hope all of you guys have taken yet, and if you didn't, I recommend you do it right now, because it is a very good way to show you where you stand on the political spectrum, to properly evaluate what your beliefs are, and it shows you it shows you a couple of axes on each and every single issue, federal government versus states, and so on and so forth. And it shows you where you stand on that issue. Oftentimes, a statement that you're on the right of the political spectrum or that you're on the left of the political spectrum can be misleading because many people are mostly one side but still have some beliefs from the other mixed in, and that's what this test can show you. Now, I'm very excited to find out my own one. And here we have oppression by corporations is more important than is by corporations is more of a concern than oppression by government. All right, I see. This test has 70 questions. So reading every single one of it might be a bit difficult, but I will try my best. Now, is oppression by corporations more of a concern than oppression by government? Generally, I would say if a oppression by a corporation can only be done if the government properly enforces laws. So I would generally say if the government does not function, then corporations can do whatever they want. And a government can only function if it's not oppressive, but working on behalf of the people. So I would say disagree. It is necessary for the government to intervene in the economy to protect consumers. Well, sometimes you can do over regulation, but generally you should not have corporations have free reign when it comes to poisoning or drinking water, for example. The freer the market, the freer the people. Well, that is technically a true statement because the freer you are, but there are some consequences of complete freedom, such as anarchy. However, I know how this question is intended, and I generally do not think that if everybody is more free, that if corporations are free to do whatever they want, that makes the average person more free. I would say no on that. So disagree. It is better to maintain a balanced budget than to ensure the welfare of all citizens. Um, Maybe not a completely balanced budget, but generally, if you have a balanced budget, then you have a strong economy, you have a strong currency, and if you don't have that, you have inflation, which is arguably worse than not having enough welfare. So I'll say either agree or neutral. I'd go with agree. Public funded research is more beneficial than the people than leaving it to the market. I'd not say so. I think the markets should have the ability to steer innovation, but that doesn't mean that the public can't fund it when it needs to be funded. Tariffs on international trade are important to encourage local production. Actually, I think so, yeah. If we wouldn't have had NAFTA, we would have been in a much better situation today. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is a good idea. Well, that's mostly a communist question, so planned economies don't work, so I'd go strongly disagree. It would be best if social programs were abolished in favor of private charity. I mean, in a perfect world, that would be the case, but this is not going to happen anytime soon, and I don't want to abolish most essential social programs, so I'll go with strongly disagree. Taxes should be increased on the rich to provide for the poor. Well, the rich are, yeah, I mean, generally, I'd rather go with disagree for this one, but actually, the rich should provide for the poor, not for their lives so they can live a modest lifestyle, but there should be a basic insurement for everyone. Nobody should have to die from treatable diseases, and no child should grow up in poverty. When you consider how much the people at the top really have, how much they're being protected by our selfish career politicians, this might be a bit of a left wing response, but I'm not saying that they need to like pay up their entire wealth. I'm just saying it's not asked too much to give a little to help other people. And I'm not talking about corporations, I'm talking about individuals. They're not investing their money, they're just spending it. Inheritance is a legitimate form of wealth. Yeah, you can inherit money, obviously. Basic utilities like roads and electricity should be publicly owned. There's some areas that you can do privatization, like for example in the prison industry, but like generally the most basic necessities need to be publicly owned, because if you have multiple people competing over like electricity, wait, actually, wait, no, of course not. I mean, electricity, there are many private electricity companies, there are many private road companies. So actually that would place a heavy burden on our government that we would not need otherwise. So I would go with, yeah, some things should be publicly owned, but most of it should be private. Government intervention is a threat to the economy. I mean, sometimes it is, sometimes it is not. If we look at the smooth Hawley tariff, that definitely hurt the economy a lot. However, sometimes the government intervention can help, so I'll go with neutral for the first time. Those with a greater ability to pay should have, receive better health care. Well, I think there should be a general amount of health care that everybody receives, but when it comes to like bigger programs, like funding research to help your particular disease, or if you like want to go get the extra special treatment that covers many things, many more than are generally provided by hospitals, then yeah, you should be able to do that. So I'll go with neutral on that. Equality education is a right of all people. I wouldn't say that everybody has a right to college, but everybody does have a right to a high school degree, unless you're like Amish and don't want to go to school. So yeah, the means of production should be owned by the workers who use them. Well, a if you build a house for somebody, then you don't automatically own that house. You get paid for it, so you don't own it. So I'd go strongly disagree. The United States nation should be abolished. Nope. There needs to be some sort of corporation on the international stage, but we don't really need to expand it a lot. Military action by our nation is often necessary to protect it. Sometimes it is, sometimes it is not. Like World War II was necessary. The Iraq War was just a stupid idea. Well, we had to go into Afghanistan. I'm neutral on that. I support regional unions such as the European Union. I support them to an extent. I mean, having being myself a European citizen, being able to travel to all these European countries, and not having to pay tariffs and on a continent that has lots of people in it with lots of diversity is really useful. I mean, for Europe, it makes sense to put tariffs on goods from outside of Europe, but not really on goods inside of Europe because they're basically the same and they just make it worse for consumers to buy stuff. So I generally support them, but I do not think they should go too far. It is important to maintain our national sovereignty. Absolutely. Everybody should support their country. A united world government would be beneficial to mankind. No, because then there'd be no more competition between anyone. And a. Yeah, that would be overall not so good because it's almost completely impossible to administer the entire world under one rule, even if it like the only way that would ever happen is if aliens attack us and we have to all stick together and fight against the foreign invader. Alright, it is more important to maintain peaceful relations than to further a strength. I would definitely strongly disagree because we have peace through strength, not strength through peace. Wars do not need to be justified to other countries. They should generally be justified, so I disagree, but you do not need to wait until they literally attack you. If there's a threat of attack, sometimes get the tiger before the tiger gets you. Military spending is a waste of money. No, it's not really. I mean, sometimes you spend money on stuff that you don't really need, but generally our nation is strengthened by our military, and we have lots of jobs that come out of the military, so nope, definitely not. International aid is a waste of money. I prefer international investments because that way you actually get the money back that you send in, but it's not a waste. It actually helps people and also it improves the relations that you have with that country. I think aid should be either condition bound or it should be a form of investment because it also helps people build up. There are many people who say that Africa would need investments in internal improvements rather than just plain enough humanitarian aid because it sometimes ends up in the pockets of the wrong people. So it could be done a lot better, but it's not generally bad. My nation is great. Yep, absolutely. I love America. I believe we can do everything. Research should be conducted on an international scale. On some things, yeah, on some things, not. There needs to be competition, so I'll go on unsure. Government should be accountable to the international community. I mean, there's certain humanitarian rights that you have to respect, but generally, I do not support infringing upon the internal business of nations. Even when protesting an authoritarian government, violence should not be acceptable. Strongly disagree, because if they're literally mass murdering people, then you have to combat with the appropriate force. My religious values should be spread as much as possible. Um, I mean, if you go do like reforming stuff, that is definitely okay, but you can't just like go with a sword and force your will upon people. So, this is really a split one. I think you should be able to spread them peacefully, but not violently, so I'll go with. I could go with neutral and unsure, but I believe this question it has like a authoritarian undertone. If you are willing to like go over everything for your beliefs, so I'll go with disagree. Our nation's values should be spread as much as possible. I mean, I'd prefer if values of Western and generally human civilization would be spread, because there are some savage civilizations that have very cringy and inappropriate practices. Like, for example, if you look at the discrimination laws in apartheid South Africa. So, I think you should promote your values as much as you can and take action if necessary, but don't go too far. It's very important to maintain law and order. Yes, I would definitely agree. Sometimes we're going too far, like with marijuana, that should be legalized. Sometimes we also go too far when it comes to whistleblowers. Julian Assange should be free. He should not be held in jail. So I'll just go with agree. The general populace make poor decisions. I don't know. Actually, no, I don't think so. Sometimes they do, but generally, a government should act in the interest of its people, yet on the other hand, they should act in the will of their people. There needs to be a delicate balance. I'll go with neutral. The general physician assisted suicide should be legal. No, I think you should maintain a people's life as long as you can. The sacrifice of some civil liberties is necessary to protect us from acts of terrorism. Absolutely not. We have gone far off the rails when it comes to sacrificing our own personal values in the names of counterterrorism. I mean, I understand it is important and necessary to like search your bags and make good controls before you board an airplane. That is just a generally like space where we're especially viable inside our airplanes, inside our airports, and also like trains and stuff. But generally, we should not let the government tread on us. So I'll go with strongly disagree. Yep. Oh, wait. I just skipped one. Government surveillance is necessary in the modern world. I mean, it's necessary on some terrorist groups, but not on the average day to day citizen, especially not without warrant. And now we're halfway through. I'm generally considering if this video is already getting too long, if we should maybe split it up. But I think we'll just go ahead. The very existence of the state is a threat to our liberty. I mean, not really. A state can provide. It can, in fact, even provide for your liberties, especially when it comes to outside threats. So I wouldn't necessarily say that. Regardless of political opinion, it is important to side with your country. I would say most times, if they like actively violate your civil rights, you have a right and actually a duty to resist. However, generally, you should maintain national unity. All authority should be questioned. Yeah, I think generally we need to have a very critical view of authority, but we should not blindly reject everything that they do. Sometimes we just have to act as a unit, but obviously do not just obey to those above you. A hierarchical state is best. Actually, I disagree. And many countries have those systems where it's like a hierarchy. First comes the government, then comes people working for the government and stuff like that. It's a little bit like a mafia state, and that should be avoided. It is important that the government follows the majority opinion, even if it is wrong. I disagree. If it is wrong to follow the majority opinion should not be followed. But when it comes to like fundamental issues like national security, however, in some cases it is good to follow the opinion of the people, because then the government is actually being accountable to its constituents. The stronger the leadership, the better. Well, that's actually true. If you have strong and decisive leadership, that can be very helpful. Democracy is more than a decision-making process. Actually not, no. The definition of democracy is like majority rule. However, if two wolves and a sheep vote on what's for dinner, that's going to be bad for the sheep. So I would generally say unsure. Environmental regulations are necessary, are essential. Yep, I would say so. They shouldn't go too far, but we definitely need them. A better world will come from automation, science, and technology. Definitely 100%. Children should be educated in religion and traditional values. Yeah, I mean, they should be told about those things. They can themselves choose whether they want to follow them. But it's definitely important to teach history and to also teach your nation's values. Traditions are of no value on their own. I disagree. Traditions have a value. That's why you had them in the first place, but they're not in false. They're not unfailable. Religion should play a role in government. I strongly disagree with that. No, we need to have separation, a strong wall between church and state. Churches should be taxed the same way that other institutions are. I disagree with that because, I mean, a church is still a position of faith. Nobody's praying to Foxconn, and therefore Foxconn has to pay taxes. But people actually believe in churches and they should be maintained. Climate change is currently one of the greatest threats to our way of life. I'm actually neutral on that. I mean, climate change definitely is an issue, but I do not think that it fundamentally threatens our way of life. And I mean, like back in the 80s, we had these big warnings about the ozone hole killing all of us. It never ended up happening. So, yeah, I'm going to go with unsure in that, but it definitely needs to be combated. So, we'll try to do something. Maybe geoengineering would help, and we can do whatever we need. It is important that we work as a united world to combat climate change. I'd agree with that, yeah, definitely. I mean, we do not have to plainly dictate everyone what to do, but global warming is a global issue, so we have to do it together. Society was better many years ago than it is now. I mean, on on some issues, maybe we were better in the past, but generally, society is always trying to progress. And if you ask most people, they're most happy with the time they currently live in. So I disagree with that. And it's important that we maintain the traditions of our past. And first of all, I might go strongly disagree with that one, but here I'd say some traditions should be maintained, but some are just not good and they need to be changed. It is important that we think in the long term beyond our lifespans. Yeah, I mean, it is really important that we have the bigger picture in our eye. Reason is more important than maintaining our culture. To the largest degree, reason is always the first thing that you should do, but culture is also important, so never lose that from your eye sense. Drug use should be legalized or decriminalized. Yes, absolutely. That's causing way more trouble than it is health, than it is preventing. And even though I am a student and I'm certainly not going to make any statements about drug use because maybe my school will find out about this, but I'm saying I have my own opinion on drug use and I will openly share that with all of you. Same sex marriage should be legal. Oh, and just because I have to say this, I never smoked anything Twinkie. No, but I actually didn't smoke. Same sex marriage should be legal. Um, I mean, I disagreed with the Supreme Court legalizing it because it was not in the Constitution. I'm a big opponent of activist judge justices, and we should actively pursue that practice. It's not okay. I'll actually make a video about the Warren Court and how it completely delegitimized the Supreme Court. But for now, I'd like to say I think generally people should be allowed to marry people of the same sex because you gotta have a world in which you live and let live. No cultures are superior to others. I'd actually disagree with that because there are some cultures who develop more useful societal practices and they were also adopted by other cultures, so I disagree. Sex outside marriage is immoral. I mean, if that was the case, I'd have to go after myself and a lot of other people that I know that are really moral persons, so strongly disagree. If we accept migrants at all, it is important that they assimilate into our culture. Yep, you don't have to do radical things, but generally everybody who moves to America would have to learn English, for example. Abortion should be prohibited in most or all cases. I'd like to say yes, because even though it is not necessarily the nicest or most useful thing to have children around, especially if you're young, it's worse to kill them, so I'd agree. Gun ownership would be prohibited for those without a valid reason. I disagree with that. I mean, everybody should have the right to own a gun. Not everybody should have the right to kill people as soon as they walk on their property if they're not posing a threat. But generally, I'm a big supporter of gun rights, and I think they should be kept. I support single payer universal health care. I support a healthcare system that helps everybody, that doesn't let people fall behind, and that covers the needs of the ones who are most needy in terms of financial support. I do not support single payer healthcare system. I do want there to be competition within the healthcare market. So I would say either disagree or not sure. I'd say neutral or not sure because in the United States, our current problem is that we're not helping people enough who need healthcare. Prostitution should be illegal. If we legalize prostitution, our rape rates are going to skyrocket. So, no way. Maintaining family values is essential. Yeah, actually, I've seen a lot of people really suffer from having divorced parents and stuff like that. I mean, you don't have to force people into a lifestyle, but family values are important. To chase progress at all costs is dangerous. If you go like some African nations after the end of colonialism, who like literally robbed people of their property with the hope of destroying colonialism, but it only ended up destroying their nation's economies. Yeah, that can be the case. However, generally, progress should not be seen as a bad thing. Genetic modification is a force for good and even on humans. I mean, yeah, genetification helped prevent literally a famine in the United States, so I'd agree. And we should open our borders to immigration. Yeah, not unlimited immigration. We still got to make sure that not the wrong people are coming in. But I support immigration. Governments should be as concerned about foreigners as they are about their own citizens. I mean, they can't vote, and they should be less prioritized when it comes to welfare spending. But you should be concerned about all your subjects. All people, regardless of factors like culture and sexuality, should be treated equally. Yeah, generally, absolutely. It is important that we further my group's goals above all others. That's the last question. And I would say my group could mean like an ethnic group, it could mean a financial group, but you generally have a right to support your own group that you're a part of. While on the other hand, you still have to respect other groups. So it's either a neutral or unsure or I agree question. But I'll go with neutral or unsure. Alright, now I'm pretty balanced out on everything apparently. On markets, I am 53.8% markets and 46.2% equality. I am 60% nation, 40% globe. I am 55.1% liberty and 44.9% authority. Like I'm centrist on economics, balanced on diplomatics, moderate on civil rights, and progressive on progressive issues. And my closest match is centrist. Ideologically matching in a work is a work in progress and is much less accurate than the values and axes you can send these results by copying and pasting the URL at the top of the paper or using the image below. Think you matched ideology was wrong. Want to help us calibrate the test? Send the results along with your political ideology at the... Alright, yeah, I see. Well, yep, those are my results. I hope you're going to take this test as well. And if you liked it, please leave a comment section down below. Comment in the section down below. I can't wait to see your results. And yeah, see you guys next time. And I hope you guys are going to take this test. Max out. Good night.